All right, we'll do it live. Portrait of an INFJ. INFJs focus on possibilities, think in terms of values, and come easily to decisions. The number of this type, 1%, is regrettable since INFJs have an unusually strong drive to contribute to the welfare of others and genuinely enjoy helping their fellow men. This type has great depth of personality. They are themselves complicated and can understand and deal with complex issues and people. It is an INFJ who is likely to have visions of human events, past, present, or future. If a person demonstrates an ability to understand psychic phenomenon better than most others, this person is apt to be an INFJ. Characteristically, INFJs have strong empathic abilities and can be aware of another's emotions or intents even before that person is conscious of these. This can take the form of feeling the distress or illnesses of others to an extent which is difficult for other types. INFJs can intuit good and evil in others, although they seldom can tell how they came to know. Subsequent events tend to bear them out, however. INFJs are usually good students, achievers who exhibit an unostentatious creativity. They take their work seriously and enjoy academic activity. They can exhibit qualities of over-perfectionism and put more into a task that perhaps is justified by the nature of the task. They generally will not be visible leaders, but they will quietly exert influence behind the scenes. INFJs are hard to get to know. They have an unusually rich inner life, but they are reserved and tend to share their reactions except only with those they trust. Because of their vulnerability through a strong facility to interject, INFJs can be hurt rather easily by others, which perhaps is at least one reason they tend to be private people. People who have known an INFJ for many years may find sides emerging which come as a surprise. Not that INFJs are inconsistent, they are very consistent and value integrity, but they have convoluted, complex personalities which sometimes puzzle even them. INFJs like to please others and tend to contribute their own best efforts in all situations. They prefer and enjoy agreeing with others and find conflict disagreeable and destructive. What is known as ESP is likely found in an INFJ more than any other types, although other types are capable of such phenomena. INFJs have vivid imaginations, exercise both as memory and intuition, and this can amount to genius, resulting at times in an INFJ being seen as mystical. This unfettered imagination often will enable this person to compose complex and often aesthetic works of art such as music, mathematical systems, poems, plays, and novels. In a sense, the INFJ is the most poetic of all types. Just as an ENTJ cannot not lead, so must an INFJ intuit. This capability extends to people, things, and often events, taking the form of visions, episodes of foreknowledge, premonitions, auditory and visual images of things to come. INFJs can have uncanny communications with certain individuals at a distance. INFJs often select liberal arts as a college major and opt for occupations which involve interacting with people, but on a one-to-one basis. For example, the general practitioner of medicine might be an INFJ, or the psychiatrist or psychologist. As with all NFs, the ministry holds attraction, although an INFJ must develop an extroverted role here, which requires a great deal of energy. INFJs may be attracted to writing as a profession, and often they use language which contains an unusual degree of imagery. They are masters of the metaphor, and both their verbal and written communications tend to be elegant and complex. Their great talent for language usually is directed toward people, describing people in writing to communicate with people in a personalized way. INFJs who write comment often that they write with a particular person in mind. Writing to a faceless, abstract audience leaves them uninspired. INFJs make outstanding individual therapists who have the ability to get in touch with the archetypes of their patients in a way other types do not. The INFJs are also the most vulnerable of all the types to the eruption of their own archetypal material. As therapists, INFJs may choose counseling, clinical psychology, or psychiatry, or may choose to teach in these fields. Writing about these professions often intrigues an INFJ. Whatever their choice, they generally are successful in these fields because their great personal warmth, their enthusiasm, their insight, their depth of concentration, their originality, and their organizational skills can all be brought into play. At work as well as socially, INFJs are highly sensitive in their handling of others and tend to work well in an organizational structure. They have a capacity for working at jobs which require solitude and concentration, but also do well when in contact with people, providing the human interaction is not superficial. INFJs enjoy problem solving and can understand and use human systems creatively and humanistically. As employees or employers, INFJs are concerned with people's feelings and are able to provide in themselves a barometer of the feelings of individuals and groups within the organization. INFJs listen well and are willing and able to consult and cooperate with others. Once a decision is made, they work to implement it. INFJs are generally good at public relations and themselves have good interpersonal relations. They value staff harmony and want an organization to run smoothly and pleasantly, themselves making every effort to contribute to that end. They are crushed by too much criticism and can have their feelings hurt rather easily. They respond to praise and use approval as a means of motivating others, just as the INFJs, are motivated by approval. If they are subject to a hostile, unfriendly working condition or to constant criticism, they tend to lose confidence, become unhappy and immobilized, and finally become physically ill. As mates, INFJs are usually devoted to their spouses, but may not always be open to physical approaches. They tend to be physically demonstrative at times, but wish to choose when, which is when they are in the mood. This may be quite confusing to an extroverted mate. Often an INFJ's expressions of affection will be subtle, taking a humorous, unexpected turn. INFJs need and want harmony in their homes and find constant conflict, overt or covert, extremely destructive to their psyches. Their friendship circle is likely to be small, deep, and long-standing. As parents, INFJs are fiercely devoted. A female INFJ, in particular, is linked to her children in a way different from most other types, with an almost psychic symbiosis. This deep bond can create an overdependency that can be unhealthy for both mother and child. At the same time, INFJs tend to be good friends with their children while firm in discipline. They usually are concerned about the comfort of the home and most especially the comfort, physical health, and emotional well-being of both mates and children. Portrait of an ENFP. For ENFPs, nothing occurs which does not have some significance, and they have an uncanny sense of the motivations of others. This gives them a talent for seeing life as an exciting drama, pregnant with possibilities for both good and evil. This type is found in only about 5% of the general population, but they have great influence because of their extraordinary impact on others. ENFPs strive towards the authentic, even when acting spontaneously, and this intent is usually communicated non-verbally to others, who find this characteristic attractive. ENFPs, however, find their own efforts of authenticity and spontaneity always lacking and tend to heap coals of fire on themselves, always berating themselves for being so conscious of self. ENFPs consider intense emotional experiences vital. When they have these, however, they are made uneasy by a sense of being there, but with a part of themselves split off. They strive for congruency, but always see themselves in some danger of losing touch with their real feelings, which ENFPs possess in a wide range and variety. ENFPs exercise a continuous scanning of the external environment, and nothing out of the ordinary is likely to escape their attention. They are keen and penetrating observers and are capable of intense concentration on another individual while aware of what is going on about them. Their attention is never passive or casual, never wandering, but always directed. At times, ENFPs find themselves interpreting events in terms of another's hidden motive, giving special meanings to words or actions. This interpretation tends to be negative and, more often than not, inaccurately negative. In the process, an ENFP might find that he or she has introduced an unnecessary toxic element in the relationship. When ENFPs are brilliantly perceptive, they can make serious mistakes in judgment. While ENFPs are brilliantly perceptive, they can make serious mistakes in judgment, which works to their discomfort. These mistakes derive from their tendency to focus on data which confirm their own biases. They may also be absolutely correct in their perceptions, but wrong in their conclusions. Because they tend to be hypersensitive and hyper alert, they may suffer from muscle tension. They live in readiness for emergencies because they have this facility. They assume this is true for others. They can become bored rather quickly with both situations and people and resist repeating experiences. They enjoy the process of creating something, an idea or a project, but not as interested in the follow through. They are typically enthusiastic, and this is contagious. People get caught up and entranced by an ENFP. Yet this type is marked with a fierce independence, repudiating any kind of subordination, either in themselves or in others in relation to them. They do tend to attribute more power to authority figures than is there and give over to these figures an ability to see through them, which is also apt to not be there. While ENFPs resist the notion of others becoming dependent or having power over them, their charisma draws followers who wish to be shown the way. ENFPs constantly find themselves surrounded by others who look toward the ENFP for wisdom, inspiration, courage, leadership, and so on, an expectancy which at times weighs rather heavily on an ENFP. ENFPs are are characteristically optimistic and are surprised when people or events do not turn out as anticipated. Often their confidence in the innate goodness of fate and human nature is a self-fulfilling prophecy. ENFPs have a remarkable latitude in career choices and succeed in many fields. As workers, they are warmly enthusiastic, highly spirited, ingenious, imaginative, and can do almost anything else that interests them. They can solve most problems, particularly those dealing with people. They are charming and at ease with colleagues. Others enjoy their presence. ENFPs are outstanding in getting people together and are good at initiating meetings and conferences, although not as talented at providing for the operational details of these events. They enjoy inventing new ways of doing things, and their projects tend to become a cause, quickly becoming personalized. They are imaginative themselves, and they can have difficulty picking up on ideas and projects initiated by others. They must make these ideas and projects their own if ENFPs are to lend their energy and interest. Once people or projects become routine, ENFPs are likely to lose interest. What might be is always more fascinating than what is. ENFPs make extensive use of their intuitive powers. They usually have a wide range of personal and telephone contacts, expanding energy and maintaining both career and personal relationships. ENFPs make excellent salespeople, advertising people, politicians, screen or playwriters, and in general are attracted to the interpretive arts, particularly character acting. People to people work is essential for ENFPs who need the feedback of interaction with others. ENFPs may find it difficult to work within the constraints of an institution, especially in following rules, regulations, and standard operating procedures. More frequently, institutional procedures and policies are targets to be challenged and bent by the will of an ENFP. Colleagues and superiors sometimes find themselves in the position of having to accommodate and salvage. At times, ENFPs demonstrate impatience with others that may get into difficulty in an organization by siding with its detractors who find an ENFP a sympathetic ear and a natural rescuer. In occupational choice, ENFPs quickly become restless if the choice involves painstaking detail and follow through over a period of time. Variety in day-to-day operations and interactions best suits the talents of ENFPs who need quite a bit of latitude in which to exercise their adaptive ingenuity. As mates, ENFPs tend to be charming, gentle, sympathetic, and nonconformist. They are not likely to be interested in the less inspired routines of daily maintenance and ever will be seeking new outlets for their inspirations. As parents, ENFPs are devoted, although somewhat unpredictable in handling their children, shifting from a role of friend in need rescuer to stern authority figure. They may not always be willing to enforce their impulsive pronouncements, but leave it to their mates to follow through. A mate of an ENFP can expect charming surprises, extravagant generosity punctuated by periods of frugality. Independent actions regarding money on the part of an ENFP's mate are not ordinarily welcomed, and the mate may find him or herself in an embarrassing situation of having to return purchases. ENFPs generally are the ones in charge of the home, and a conflict free home is desired, almost demanded. When he or she is in charge of economic resources, the ENFP's home may contain extravagant luxuries, while necessities may be missing. They are not always interested in saving for the future and may be casual in giving consideration to such things as life insurance, savings accounts, and even a ready cash supply for mate and children. ENFPs are characteristic of their pursuit of the novel, their strong sense of the possible, and outstanding intuitive powers. At the same time, they have warmth and fun with people and generally are unusually skilled in handling people. Their extroverted role tends to be well developed, as is their capacity for the novel and the dramatic. Portrait of an INFP. INFPs present a calm, pleasant face to the world and are seen as reticent and even shy. Although they demonstrate a cool reserve towards others, inside they are anything but distant. They have a capacity for caring which is not always found in other types. They care deeply, indeed passionately, about a few special persons or a cause. One word that captures this type is idealistic. At times, this characteristic leaves them feeling isolated, especially since INFPs are found in only 1% of the general population. INFPs have a profound sense of honor derived from internal values. The INFP is the prince or princess of mythology, the king's champion, defender of the faith, and guardian of the castle. Sir Galahad and Joan of Arc are male and female prototypes of an INFP. To understand INFPs, their cause must be understood, for they are willing to make unusual sacrifices for someone or something believed in. INFPs seek unity in their lives, unity of body and mind, emotions and intellect. They often have a subtle, tragic motif running through their lives, but others seldom detect this inner minor key. The deep commitment of INFPs to the positive and the good cause causes them to be alert to the negative and the evil, which can take the form of fascination with the profane. Thus, INFPs may live in a paradox, drawn from purity and unity, but looking over the shoulder toward the sullied and the desecrated. When INFPs believe that they have yielded to an impure temptation, they may give in towards acts of self-sacrifice in atonement. The atonement, however, is within the INFP, who does not feel compelled to make public the issue. INFPs prefer valuing process over the purely logical. They respond to the beautiful versus the ugly, the good versus the bad, and the moral versus the immoral. Impressions are gained in a fluid, global, diffused way. Metaphors and similes come naturally but may be strained. INFPs have a gift for interpreting symbols as well as creating them, and thus often write in lyric fashion. They may demonstrate a tendency to take deliberate liberties with logic. Unlike the NT, they see logic as something optional. INFPs also may at times assume an unwarranted familiarity with the domain because their global impressionistic way of dealing with reality may have failed to register a sufficient number of details for mastery. INFPs may have difficulty thinking in terms of a conditional framework. They see things as either real or fancied and are impatient with the hypothetical. At work, INFPs are adaptable, welcome new ideas and new information, and are well aware of people and their feelings and relate well to most, albeit with some psychological distance. INFPs dislike phone interruptions and work well alone, as well as with others. They are patient with complicated situations, but impatient with routine details. They can make errors of fact, but seldom of values. Their career choices may be toward the ministry, missionary work, college teaching, psychiatry, architecture, psychology, and away from business. They seem willing and usually are able to apply themselves scholastically to gain necessary training for professional work, often doing better in college than in high school. They have a natural interest in scholarly activities and demonstrate, as do other NFs, a remarkable facility for languages. Often they hear a calling to go forth into the world to help others. They seem willing to make the necessary personal sacrifices involved in responding to that call, even if it means asking others to do likewise. INFPs can make outstanding novelists and character actors, for they are able to efface their own personalities in their portrayal of a character in a way other types cannot. As mates, INFPs have a deep commitment to their pledges. They like to live in harmony and may go to great lengths to avoid constant conflict. They are sensitive to the feelings of others and enjoy pleasing those they care for. They may find it difficult to reconcile a romantic, idealized concept of conjugal life with the realities of everyday living with another person. At times, in fact, INFPs may seem fearful of exuberant attainment, afraid that current advances may have to be paid for with later sacrifices. The devil is sure to get his due if the INFP experiences too freely of success or beauty or health or wealth or knowledge, and thus INFPs guard against giving way to relaxing in the happiness of mating. They may have difficulty in expressing affection directly, but communicate interest and affection indirectly. For INFPs, their home is their castle. As parents, they are fierce in protection of home and family and are devoted to the welfare of family members. They have a strong capacity for devotion, sympathy, and adaptability in their relationships, and thus are easy to live with. They are loyal to their family, and although they may dream of greener pastures, if they stray into those pastures, they soon locate the nettles. The almost preconscious conviction that pleasure must be paid for with pain can cause a sense of uneasiness in the family system of an INFP, who may transmit an air of ever vigilant against invasion. In the routine rituals of daily living, INFPs tend to be compliant and may even prefer to having decisions made on their behalf until their value system is violated. Then INFPs dig in their heels and they will not budge from their ideals. Life with an INFP will go gently along for long periods until an ideal is struck and violated. Then an INFP will resist and insist. Portrait of an ENTJ. If one word were to use to capture ENTJ style, it would be commandant. The basic driving force and need of ENTJs is to lead, and from an early age, they can be observed taking over groups. This group is found in approximately 5% of the total population. ENTJs have a strong urge to give structure wherever they are, to harness people to distant goals. Their empirical, objective, and extroverted thinking may be highly developed. If this is the case, they use classification, generalization, summarization, adduction of evidence, and demonstration with ease. They resemble ESTJs in their tendency to establish plans for a task, enterprise, or organization, but ENTJs search more for policy and goals than for regulations and procedures. And ENTJ's introverted thinking, analysis, and conservation may be less well developed than the extroverted thinking processes. And the ENTJ leader may turn to an ENTP or INTP to provide this kind of input. ENTJs are similar to INTJs, except that the former places greater trust in empirical thought than on intuition. It is the ENTJ's own intuitive sense of coherence, however, that augments and supports their empirical thinking. Although ENTJs are tolerant of established procedures, they can abandon any procedure when it can be shown to be indifferent to the goal it seemingly serves. Inefficiency is especially rejected by ENTJs, and repetition of error causes them to become impatient. For the ENTJ, there must always be a reason for doing anything, and people's feelings usually are not sufficient reason. When in charge of an organization, ENTJs, more than any other type, desire and generally have the ability to visualize where the organization is going and seem able to communicate that vision to others. They are the natural organization builders, and they cannot not lead. They find themselves in command and sometimes are mystified as to how this happened. As administrators, ENTJs organize their units into a smooth functioning system, planning in advance, keeping both short-term and long-range objectives well in mind. They seek and can see efficiency and effectiveness in personnel. They prefer decisions to be based on impersonal data, want to work from well-thought-out plans, and like to use engineered operations, and they prefer that others follow suit. ENTJs will support the policy of the organization and will expect others to do so. ENTJs will usually rise to positions of responsibility and enjoy being executives. They are tireless in their devotion to their jobs and can easily block out other areas of life for the sake of work. They will be able to reduce inefficiency, ineffectiveness, and aimless confusion, being willing to dismiss employees or perpetuate such behaviors. ENTJs tend to work in organizational structures of some sort, tend to be in charge administratively, and rise to top levels of responsibility, whether in the military, business, education, or government. ENTJs take charge of the home. When an ENTJ is present, there will be little doubt as to who is in command. Because their work is so important to them, however, they can become increasingly absent, especially if male. Male or female ENTJs expect a great deal of their mates, who need to possess a strong personality of their own, a well-developed autonomy, many and varied interests, and a healthy self-esteem. A career wife, however, may not be appealing to an ENTJ male who is apt to view his home and family as part of his professional background, a resource, and adjunct to his own career development. As a parent, an ENTJ will be thoroughly in charge, and the children will know what is expected of them and will be expected to obey. When this does not occur, an ENTJ parent is not apt to make a scene, rather. There is more likely to be a low-key, firm issuance of reprimand and a taking for granted of immediate obedience. While both mating and parenting are important roles to the ENTJ, they are to some degree preempted by the ENTJ's strong career interest. The romantic dream and the quest for the ideal mate is usually not a characteristic of this type. ENTJs generally do, however, expect a home to be attractive, well-ordered, with meals served punctually and maintenance accomplished on schedule. All these in the service of the larger goal of creating a family system where children can be reared to be productive and healthy, and establishing a devoted, harmonious relationship between man and woman. An ENTJ male might expect his mate to be active in civic and community affairs, to be socially sophisticated and as well educated as he. The ENTJ female may find it difficult to select a mate who is not overwhelmed by her strong personality and will. Portrait of an INTJ. INTJs are the most self-confident of all the types, having self-power awareness. Found in about 1% of the general population, the INTJs live in an introspective reality, focusing on possibilities, using thinking in the form of empirical logic, and preferring that events and people serve some positive use. Decisions come naturally to INTJs. Once a decision is made, INTJs are at rest. INTJs look to the future rather than the past, and a word which captures the essence of INTJs is builder, a builder of systems and the implier of theoretical models. The INTJ's authority based on position, rank, title, or publication has absolutely no force. This type is not likely to succumb to the magic of slogans, watchwords, or shibboleths. If an idea or position makes sense to an INTJ, it will be adopted. If it doesn't, it won't, regardless of who took the position or generated the idea. As with the INTP, authority per se does not impress the INTJ. INTJs do, however, tend to conform to rules if they are useful, not because they believe in them or because they make sense, but because of their unique view of reality. They are the supreme pragmatists who see reality as something which is quite arbitrary and made up. Thus, it can be used as a tool or ignored. Reality is quite malleable and can be changed, conquered, or brought to heel. Reality is a crucible for the refining of ideas, and in this sense, INTJs are the most theoretical of all the types. Where an ESTP sees ideas as a pawn of reality, an INTJ sees reality as the pawn of ideas. No idea is too far-fetched to be entertained. INTJs are natural brainstormers, always open to new concepts, and in fact, aggressively seeking them. INTJs manipulate the world of theory as if it on a gigantic chessboard, always seeking strategies and tactics that have high payoff. In their penchant for logic, the INTJs resemble the INTPs. The logic of an INTJ, however, is not confined to the expressively logical. Unlike INTPs, INTJs need only to have a vague, intuitive impression of the unexpressed logic of a system to continue surely on their way. Things need only seem logical. This is entirely sufficient. Moreover, they always have a keen eye for the consequence of the application of new ideas or positions. They can be quite ruthless in the implementation of systems, seldom counting personal cost in terms of time and energy. Theories which cannot be made to work are quickly discarded by the INTJs. To understand INTJs, their way of dealing with reality rather than their way of dealing with ideas should be observed closely. Their conscious thought is extroverted and empirical. Hence, they are better at generalizing, classifying, summarizing, adducing evidence, proving, and demonstrating than are the INTPs. The INTJs are somewhat less at home with pure reason, that is, systemic logic, where principles are explicit. In this respect, they resemble ENTJs. The INTJs, rather than using deductive logic, force their intuition to grasp coherence. INTJs have a drive to completion, always with an eye to long-term consequences. Ideas seem to carry their own force for INTJs, although they subject every area to the test of their usefulness. Difficulties are highly stimulating to INTJs who love responding to a challenge that requires creativity. These personality traits lead INTJs to occupations where theoretical models can be translated into actuality. They build data and human systems wherever they work if given even a slight opportunity. They can be outstanding in scientific research and also outstanding as executives who generate a plethora of implementations of ideas. Teamed with an INTP who is the architect of the systems, the INTJ provides a dimension to an organization which ensures that the work of the INTP does not gather dust on library shelves. INTJs can be very single-minded at times. This can be either a weakness or a strength in their careers, for they can ignore the point of view and wishes of others. INTJs usually rise to positions of responsibility, for they work long and hard and are steady in their pursuit of goals, sparing neither time nor effort on their part or that of their colleagues and employees. INTJs live to see systems translated into substance. An INTP, by way of contrast, is content to design the system. In both of these types, however, coherence is the master. Both internal and external consistency are important. And if an INTJ finds that he or she is in a working situation where overlapping functions, duplication of effort, inefficient paper flow, and waste of human and material resources abound, the INTJ cannot rest until an effort is made to correct the situation. Cost effectiveness is a concept which has a strong imperative for INTJs, who frequently select occupations in engineering, particularly human engineering. They also can be found in physical sciences and roles which require development, such as curriculum building, and in general, any job which requires the creation and application of technology to complex areas. Fellow workers of INTJs often feel as if the INTJ can see right through them and often believe that the INTJ finds them wanting. This tendency of people to feel transparent in the presence of an INTJ often results in relationships which have psychological distance. Thus, colleagues find the INTJ apparently unemotional and at times cold and dispassionate. Because of their tendency to drive others as hard as they do sometimes, INTJs often seem demanding and difficult to satisfy. INTJs are high achievers in school and on the job. On the job, they take the goals of an institution seriously and continually strive to respond to these goals. They make dedicated, loyal employees whose loyalties are directed toward the system rather than toward individuals within the system. So as the people of an institution come and go, the INTJs have little difficulty, unlike the NFs who have their loyalties involved more with persons than offices. INTJs tend ordinarily to verbalize the positive and eschew comments of a negative nature. They are more interested in moving an institution forward than commiserating about mistakes of the past. As mates, INTJs want harmony and order in the home and in relationships. They are the most independent of all the types. They will trust their intuitions about others when making choices of friends and mates, even in the face of contradictory evidence and pressure applied by others. The emotions of an INTJ are hard to read, and neither male nor female INTJ is apt to express emotional reactions. At times, both will seem cold, reserved, and unresponsive, while in fact, INTJs are most hypersensitive to signals of rejection from those for whom they care. In social situations, INTJs may also be unresponsive and may neglect to observe small rituals designed to put others at ease. For example, INTJs may communicate that time is wasted if used for idle dialogue, and thus people receive a sense of hurry from an INTJ, which is not always intended. In their interpersonal relationships, INTJs are usually better in a working situation than in recreational situations. They do not enjoy physical contact except with a chosen few. As parents, INTJs are dedicated and single minded in their devotion. Their children are a major focus in life. They are supportive of their children and tend to allow them to develop in directions of their own choosing. INTJs usually are firm and consistent in their discipline and rarely care to repeat directions given to children or others. Being the most independent of all the types, they have a strong need for autonomy. Indifference or criticism from people in general does not particularly bother INTJs if they believe that they are right. They also have a strong need for privacy. The most important preference of an INTJ is intuition, but this is seldom seen. Rather, the function of thinking is used to deal with the world and with people. INTJs are vulnerable in the emotional area and may make serious mistakes here.